Go into your room, that's right. Sit on that fat of yours and do nothing but listen to records.
You more than the Garden of Eden. Then she'll carelessly cut you and laugh while you're bleeding. But she'll bring out the best and the worst you can be. Shadows at you, but she's always a woman to me.
When I walked in your house,
yes,
and I saw in this beautiful house, and I saw the stereo sitting in the middle of the living room,
yeah,
I said, "You married well."
I married.
You married well.
I know.
And then, when we're playing music,
yes,
and she comes over and says, "Turn it up, turn it up," I said, "You married very well."
Yeah, I know.
Not everybody gets that.
Yeah.
Believe me, I can tell you stories,
yeah,
but I won't tell you stories.
Yeah.
So, what do you think it is that makes some people obsessed about sound quality to the point where they would like to devote their time and attention to sound quality, and other people don't?
Beauty. Beauty.
Beauty.
Yes.
That's what music does.
And beauty in music.
But some people don't feel that it has to sound as beautiful as the music suggests, but other people are drawn. Obviously, that's what draws you to it.
You know, it's truth, beauty, and goodness.
And it's something that you've devoted a lot of time to.
Well, I did, yes.
And the point of it is to share with other people, to
share with I built, and I have said that many times, I built all this stuff for myself, and then I thought other people might get enjoyment out of this as well.
So you didn't get into this to make money?
Well, I got into it once, but that was a losing business. I eventually got out of all the artistry. You know, I said I can only lose so much.
Right.
I cannot. I have to.
That's what they
retire.
say.
You know, I cannot.
That's what they say about the audio industry. If you want to make $1 million,
yeah,
start with 2 million.
Start with 2 million.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So, most people know your name from your crossover work. Yeah.
Crossover, yeah.
How did that? Once you thought of it, once everybody else saw what you had thought of, it was like, oh, well, that's obvious, but no one ever thought of it.
Yeah.
So what were you doing when you thought of it?
We were building ourselves a hi-fi system. See, this was a time when I worked at Hewlett-Packard. We had all the tools, everything there. We could build anything. So we were building ourselves amplifiers and stereo tuners and well, everything that you need for a hi-fi system, except loudspeakers. Loudspeakers were a mystery to us, because we looked at loudspeakers and said, we don't understand, why do they do this? It seems stupid to us, you know, what they were doing with loudspeakers. And they still do the same thing. These days I don't listen to other loudspeakers, I take a look and I know exactly what's wrong with it.
And so, were you doing all of this work on Hewlett-Packard's time, or was it your own time?
No, it was our own time.
Yeah.
HP had this philosophy of, we called it G jobs, government jobs.
Right.
Important jobs, and they provided all the tools. They said you have access to anything to the model shop, but it cannot not during work time. You can do it lunchtime and after work.
That was very progressive of them to allow that.
Progressive because they knew what we learned in the end would benefit HP.
Ah.
Some guys build ignition systems for the VW, electronic ignition system to tune up the VW buses or to run more evenly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Riley, somebody, he was big. And then we had a spark generator, had a really good spark, which we thought we could use as for an impulse, direct pulse,
right,
to measure our loudspeakers. We built ourselves a real-time analyzer with a row of filters, a filter bank with light bulbs which would glow, so RMS detectors, and that way we could tell whether the thing was really flat. But the disappointment was flat wasn't it. This revelation came when I bought one of the speakers down in Palo Alto. We sometimes during lunch hour would rush down to there was a store, I forgot the name, on University Avenue, hi-fi store, right? And they knew us, all those HP guys are coming, they never buy anything, they just listen to the stuff that we have. So we went there and listened to it, and there was one speaker that I really liked, that was the ESS7. And as it turns out, Nelson Pearce, who lives in Sea Ranch, who is a dear friend of mine, Nelson worked for ESS, but later, he's younger than I am. He worked for ESS with the Oscar Heil tweeter.
So it's a Heil,
yeah. The Heil tweeter. I met Oscar and wanted to buy a tweeter from him, and it was $400, and that seemed way too much money to me at that time. But a friend of mine got one, and we measured it, and it had, we measured it, it had way too much distortion for our liking,
Yeah. So what's the correlation between measurements and what you actually hear?
Yeah, that's a big secret.
And what's the?
No, I'm not trying to keep it a secret.
Well, don't.
It's two different perceptual apparatuses, right? One is the eye, and what is important to the eye is not necessarily important to the ear. Why should it?
I agree.
Why should it? I mean, nature made sure each does its job and does its job perfectly. You get cues from the eye, but something that looks gross to the eye in the frequency response, the ear says, I don't care.
Can I tell you a short story related to that?
Yeah.
So I was doing a turntable setup seminar at a store in New York, and two young guys came into the room, and they don't have turntables, but they wanted to engage me in conversation about my room.
Yeah.
And one said, we see your room, big bump, big bass bump. How do you stand that bass bump? And I said, you don't hear it. It sounds great in my room. No, it can't sound. We see bump. It's got to be boomy bass. I said, why don't you guys come over?
Yeah.
Come on over. And so you'd invite us to your place? I said, come on over. So they came over and they sat down. They had their test CD. Yeah. And when they were finished, he said, you're right. No boomy bass. Sounds good. I said, yeah, because what you're seeing and what you hear are two different things. Then I played him a record, and we don't like records, no record. I played him a record, and that's a record? That sounds great. Can we get that on a CD? I said, yeah, but it won't sound as good. And they got the CD and called me a week later.
But there is another thing, that if you suggest something, it's very difficult for a person not to hear what you have suggested.
Well, that's true too. But they suggested that it wasn't going to sound good.
No,
they were pretty.
You said already it sounds good. Yeah.
Right. Well, they were very skeptical that they would think it sounded good, and they did.
Yeah.
And believe me, not everybody that you suggest anything to necessarily follows your suggestion.
Yeah.
So, what's more important in a speaker, amplitude response or phase response?
Phase response is secondary.
Secondary.
Secondary. It's important. I have Joachim Gerhardt, who you know.
I know him very well, sure.
You know Joachim and he's a guy in England, Malcolm Hawksford.
Yeah.
They did a lot of experiments there, and Joachim told me when you have linear phase response, instead of talk, it sounds tick. That's what he said to me. But I have heard the Key 3 loudspeaker. You know that one?
No.
It's from. Oh boy, you better get to know that one. Key 3 is from Bruno Puzzi.
I've heard the only thing I've heard from him is that little white thing that has all the drivers in a little box and it's all DSP for each. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yes, and that one you can adjust for linear phase. Consequences, you have a lot of group delay, in the signal, which if you just listen to music doesn't matter. If you listen with video, you put a time gap between the video and your, which can be corrected.
Yeah, of course.
Can be corrected there.
But group delay is very important to produce a coherent loudspeaker, isn't it? To minimize.
No, not in my.
No.
I did a lot of work on group delay. Like the Linkwitz-Reilly filters introduce group delay, but not a sharp peak. If in the group delay you introduce a sharp peak, you actually hear the ringing at that frequency where you have the peak. I mean, I built all-pass filter. You can to get group delay, you can build that with an all-pass filter, and you can get any sharpness of peak. But the Linkwitz-Reilly filter is far from being audible. It's basically my philosophy always in life, just to do something that's good enough for me. I'm not after perfection.
Is there such a thing? I don't think there is such a thing.
I don't think there is. And that is one of my complaints about the Stereophile magazine that you write for.
Uh-oh, now I'm going to get it.
No, you no kids. Don't take it personal, okay?
I don't.
Okay. It's this emphasis on these 140,003 speakers and $3,000 amplifiers, and yes, they may be good. Not the speakers. I can tell you right away. I look at the speakers; they're crap. But there are amplifiers, and Dan told me this morning. You know, like Nelson's pass labs amplifiers, that are really super.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the other things, you know. So.
Yeah.
I don't know about it.
But again, sometimes, you know, when I review equipment in Stereophile, I don't see any measurements. I just go by what I hear.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, and then they measure it, and sometimes the products don't measure up.
Yeah.
But they sound great.
Yeah.
So then, what does that mean? If it sounds wonderful, but it doesn't measure so well.
That the ear hears different than what the eye sees in the frequency. Which brings me to the other point. Everybody just, when loudspeaker measures the on-axis response.
Right. Meaningless.
meaningless.
That's what Joachim always told me.
Yeah.
He said anybody can design a speaker today that has flat on-axis response.
I mean, you have computers, you can get it as smooth as you want, you know.
And it means nothing.
Doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Doesn't mean anything.
The problem is the readers look for that graph first.
Yeah.
They look for that response, and if that's not perfect,
Yeah.
then they say, what good is a speaker that can't do that? That's the first job.
Yeah.
But they're not listening. They're just looking.
Yeah, it's what goes into the room, because it comes back. When you are sitting, we are sitting pretty close. We are probably not even within the critical distance of my voice. My voice is not directional enough for you to be in the critical distance. So you get a lot of reverberant, reflected sounds in your ears, okay? But they're all correlated to the direct sound.
Right.
Okay? And your brain, for survival, has learned to detect the direct sound and location of the direct sound, or you wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have survived.
That's right. So what do you think about double-blind testing for everything? Is that not necessary?
I believe in long-term testing.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
People who say double-blind for everything, I say, how would we have survived if we had to do a double-blind test to find out if the tiger was behind us over there or over there?
Whether you can run faster than I can.
No, I believe when what I do for my stuff here, when I think I'm at a point where I'm maybe this is good enough for me, then I listen, okay, and I know that subconsciously, or don't know, things, if something isn't right, it will come up, you know, but not immediately. It may take weeks, and then I realize, there's really the balance between tweeter and bass is really not right, okay? And then, so what do I have to do? Do I have to increase tweeter or the bass? And here's another weird thing. Sometimes you increase the tweeter and you get more bass.
Really?
Yes.
Is that a physical factor or perceptual?
Perception.
Yeah.
It's all perception.
What do you think about speakers where the end user is allowed to mess with the levels of the various drivers?
Oh. They can deal with this thing forever.
Yeah, they never stop.
And the worst thing is these days, these room correction systems. You know, you can maybe 1 or 2 bass resonances you can take care of.
Right.
But to take care of the whole room, it's I don't believe it's possible.
Too much processing?
Too much. Yeah. Way too much.
Yeah, you lose.
Because our brain is perfectly set up to do that job. You know?
Right. That's right.
It's perfectly capable.
So how important is I see your room has no treatment at all.
No.
No, that's not true. My room has treatment. If you look around in the room, there are bookshelves up on top, which are diffusing elements. Behind the speaker, there is a chimney.
Right.
On one side is again my CDs, diffusing elements. I do not want to lose energy. Now the dipole has a big advantage that it has a null, and you can really hear it. If you take a microphone, you know, and you go around the speaker, you can, you know, with headphones. It has to be with headphones.
Yeah.
So you don't hear the other.
Right.
But you go around the speaker, you hear the null on the side, in the room.
Right in between, right
in the plane, right in the plane.
Right.
Of the speaker. Right. Yeah.
And that's advantageous?
That's advantageous because I aim that null, say towards, there's a lot of glass in that room, a lot of windows.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, sometimes in the evening when it sort of gets dim, I can see the reflection of the loudspeakers in this window and in the other window, and I could just by that, you know, aim the speaker such that I see from my listening, from the sweet spot, I see the edge of the loudspeaker.
So at this point in time, you must.
I need
Yeah, what can I help you with that?
to have a glass of water.
At this point in time, it appears that moving coil speaker technology has advanced to a point where it's surpassed all the other types of drivers overall.
I don't know.
You don't know, but that's what you're using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I said I mean you can search forever, and I just basically decided on moving coil, and I know if you think of ribbon, you know, high type transformers.
Mm-hmm.
I tried once in one of those Bolander Grabner BG driver, had to high distortion for my taste.
Yeah.
And the other problem is that the vertical polar pattern, you cannot neglect the vertical pattern.
Yeah.
What you want to have is basically an acoustic point source. An acoustic point source as a dipole. An acoustic dipole. Now, the woofer in my system, of course, it's down here, the tweeter up there, okay? At woofer wavelengths, that's nothing. You know, the frequency range that it covers, the woofer goes up to 120 hertz. At 120 hertz, what's the wavelength? Well, you can.
It's big, long.
Long. So they're basically together. And the same with all the other drivers. I try to get them close. Where it gets difficult as you go up in frequency to do that. And the most difficult part is between the upper mid, the 3-inch driver, which is really a key element of the speaker. The upper mid and the tweeter. The crossover between those two is at 7.5 kilohertz, so it's pretty high, right? And the reason why I did it that high is that at that frequency, and this is based on measurement that I do here in my backyard, is that the front-firing tweeter and the 3-inch driver form sort of the lobe of a dipole. Okay. Now, I don't want the tweeter in the back. I have a tweeter in the back. Right. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
I don't want the tweeter in the back to mess up that lobe because now I have the 3-inch driver has a nice lobe, and the tweeter above it has a nice lobe. Okay, they are as close together as I can physically get them. Right. I mean, yeah. The limits to that. So it's not perfect.
Unless you put it concentric, and then you have run into other problems.
Then you have other problems. Yeah. But this is good enough for me. Yeah. Okay. So now I have the problem how to hide the rear tweeter from messing up what I have, and that's why what I did was I widened the top section of the baffle, okay, and moved the rear tweeter, moved it away from it, okay. So now the radiation is a long ways to get to the front and to these other drivers there, but because the rear tweeter is of finite dimension, it's a 1-inch dome, so it also is directional. It's not infinitely, not omni.
Right.
It basically has sort of a dipole.
Right.
Lobe.
What advantage do you get from having that second tweeter firing back? Is it spaciousness in the room? Is it helping to make it less, the speaker less differential?
That was said, if I can do it, why not do it?
Well, there's got to be an advantage to it.
Well,
there's a lot of things you can do just because that are not necessarily good things to do. But
well, I want to have a point source dipole, and to have a point source dipole, it has to radio dipole front and back.
right.
Okay. Now the rear side of this arrangement is not so pretty, you know, because I have the 3-inch has a basket there, but the energy that it radiates, it's the same as comes out the front.
Right.
Okay. The energy is not nicely uniformly radiated, but it gets out. Okay. And the tweeter, of course, is a tweeter, and the 8-inch driver, yeah, it has a big magnet there, but that blocks, but doesn't attenuate. I don't want attenuation. I want free energy flow. Okay.
And so that large 8-inch driver is covering the lower mid-range,
That 8-inch.
upper bass.
That 8-inch is covering. Wait a moment. The 3-inch. The crossover between the 3-inch and the 8-inch is at 1 kilohertz with 12 dB per octave. Okay, so fairly shallow.
Yeah.
Pretty broad overlap. And then the transition between the 8-inch and the 10-inch drivers is at 120 hertz, and that's 24 dB octave, because I want to get the 8-inch out of the picture.
Right.
You know, I did a really steep crossover.
So, is the crossover design more important than the material that the driver is made out of? In other words, could you put another 8-inch driver would the quality of the sound that your speaker produces improve if you used a more expensive driver?
Could be. I have used more expensive. I use in the Orion. I use the most expensive drivers that Sears makes. You know, what is it? Magnesium dome drivers. Lots of money.
Yeah. Does it sound better?
But no, this actually, it turns out, sounds better than the Orion. I'm sorry. He has the Orion.
Sorry.
Sorry.
You build them.
But like I said, what I have is good enough for me.
That's a good attitude to have. For many people, nothing they have is good enough.
Oh.
And they're always moving along to something else.
Yeah, sure. It's good enough for me to enjoy the music. And that's ultimately what I feel it's all about.